The Defense Dispatch.
It was the early morning hours of January 28, 2026, when the Taiwan Strait suddenly became the most massive underwater graveyard modern naval history had ever seen. Beijing had sent out its absolute pride and joy. 87 cutting-edge warships formed a massive steel wall meant to choke the life out of a sovereign island. They really thought they were the apex predators. They were convinced the entire globe was about to bow down to their unstoppable fleet, but they miscalculated on a multi-billion-dollar scale. At 6 in the morning, the trap seemed set. But just after 7, the ocean surface ripped wide open. The devastation did not come from missiles high above, but from silent leviathans hunting in the deep water. 64 advanced torpedoes, specifically the Mach 48 and Type 89 barrels, tore through the black water all at once. Those supposedly invincible Type 52B destroyers were snapped in two like bit of traps. The majestic Type 055 flagships morphed into towering infernos lighting up the Pacific Line. In exactly 41 minutes, an armada that had proudly announced a bloodless quarantine was battered into sinking, burning scrap. This was no simulation. It was an absolute slaughter built for the digital world. This is exactly what happens when you test the sheer willpower of the United States, and it found out. 87 vessels sailed into the sea, and nothing but broken wreckage floated. To understand how we got here, we have to rewind 2 days to January 26th. Deep inside a highly classified Central Military Commission in Beijing, a group of men who thought they were strategic masterminds drew up a flawless fantasy. President Xi Jinping looked across the table at his eager generals and signed off on a plan he thought would peacefully rewrite the global order. An invasion was way too messy and covered in too much blood, so they dreamed up a peaceful plan. They called it Operation Stranglehold. The logic was almost laughable in its arrogance. Just park 87 terrifying warships to the northeast and they figured nobody could argue with a peaceful maneuver. For Beijing, starving out a free democracy was just standard security. They were especially smart about having 240 United States troops trapped right in the middle of it. General Chan Wan actually bragged that Americans were all tall and militant. He assumed Washington would be begging on its knees once those elite Marines were caught in the net. They genuinely thought the toughest warriors on Earth would just cower in the shadows. By the time the sun came up on January 28th, the Chinese command was popping imaginary champagne. They thought their steel cage was flawless. They had no idea they had just parked their ships in a giant open grave. Their perfect match was built into a fantasy. They thought they were playing a casual game of chess against a timid rival, but they were actually staring down the barrel of a loaded gun. 6 fatal blind spots doomed their entire operation. First, they assumed those 240 Marines were helpless hostages. Wrong. Captain Jake Morrison and his elite crew were heavily armed, right away. Second, Beijing heard the USS while Chinese generals were patting themselves on the back. Their carrier was cutting through the ocean at electromagnetic storm of 75 combat aircraft that Chinese radar screens simply could not handle. Third, they bet that Japan would cower in the corner. Absolutely false. Those stealth-destroyers from the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force were already floating silently in the dark, with their fire control systems completely locked onto the Eastern Fleet. Fourth, the skies were anything but empty. 72 F-35 fighters were already doing quiet laps right over the Chinese ships. They were invisible, lethal, and just waiting for someone to say the word. Fifth, and maybe the most arrogant of all, they forgot to look down. They thought they owned the water, but 16 attack submarines from an American, Japanese, and Taiwanese coalition had them completely boxed in. Those 87 warships were basically splashing around in a shark tank. And the final nail in the coffin was thinking a blockade is peaceful. International law and the United States completely disagree. A blockade is war. And America never negotiates with someone holding a gun to its allies. The second a Chinese ship fired a warning shot at a random civilian cargo boat, the game was instantly over. Admiral Samuel Papero out of Pearl Harbor sent one single word to engage. The arrogance of Beijing slammed face first into the crushing reality of American firepower. At 7:05, while Chinese guns were still pointing at innocent boats, Admiral Richardson sent down the encrypted order to break the cage. 16 Allied submarines fired together. Picture 64 of the smartest wire-guided acoustic hunting torpedoes on Earth screaming through the water. In 30 seconds, the strait became a slaughterhouse. Sonar operators on the Chinese ships started screaming about torpedoes, but it was way too late. The hunters realized they were the prey. Those Mark 48 torpedoes, packed with over 300 kilograms of explosives, punched right through the steel hulls. They had enough raw power to lift a 7,000-ton destroyer completely out of the ocean before breaking its back. 4 frigates and 6 corvettes were ripped to shreds in the blink of an eye. The southern and eastern fleets were drowning in a chaotic storm of desperate emergency turns and useless decoys, crying out over the radio for help that would never arrive. But the nightmare was just getting started. Right around 7, while the ocean swallowed the southern forces, the stubborn northern task force was about to get a taste of invisible death from above. 36 jets from the USS Carl Vinson swept in, led by 20 F-35 Sea Lightning IIs. These aerial ghosts never even had to show their faces. They unleashed a swarm of long-range anti-ship missiles alongside 24 harpoons. These artificial intelligence-driven assassins actually
really well.
think for
we're ahead of
themselves
schedule.
and pick out the most valuable targets
things out of the
while
park.
being completely immune to
From my
jamming.
perspective, it went a lot better than I would
The
have thought.
radar screens on the Chinese ships were totally blank until 40 intelligent missiles suddenly broke the horizon.
Whether it's the wind over the deck,
Chinese air defenses, including their prized HQ-9 and HQ-16 systems, screamed to life and tried their best, but the math was impossible. The prized Type 055 supercruisers, which Beijing bragged were the strongest on Earth, took direct hits to their weak spots. 4 of them turned into towering bonfires. 12 ships went straight to the bottom, and the lucky survivors turned their tails and ran in absolute shame. The Northern Fleet vanished from the tactical map in under 15 minutes. Through all of this thick black smoke, Captain Jake Morrison and his Marines were calmly waiting on the beach. 8 MV-22B Ospreys roared off the deck of the USS Carl Vinson and snatched up the men without a single drop of panic. Exactly 41 minutes after the whole thing kicked off, every single Marine was strapped in and heading home safely. The message was crystal clear. You can bring your whole Navy, but you cannot hold a single American soldier against them. The second those rotors lifted, the ports flew open and cargo ships went right back to business. Beijing wanted to show off its muscle, but instead, it drowned its own global reputation. The final tally is tough to swallow. Out of 87 ships, 29 are resting in the mud. 18 are just floating garbage, and the rest ran for their lives. The Allied forces did not suffer a single scratch. It was a loud, brutal reminder that you should never confuse patience with weakness. They gambled decades of naval progress on a total fantasy and lost everything in less than an hour. Would you like me to walk you through exactly how those 16 Allied submarines slipped completely undetected into the dark water, proving once and for all that when you gamble against the quiet guardians of freedom, the house always wins?